3rd, 2013.
I'm sorry, when?
September 3rd, 2013.
Okay, so from August 9th to September 3rd, what work did you do in this case?
I reviewed her autopsy and her report.
Okay. After reviewing her autopsy and her report, after September 3rd, did you do any other work or investigation in this particular case?
No, I did not.
Okay. In January of 2015 of this year, I'll tell you the exact date. January 9, 2015, you were deposed. Do you remember that?
Yes.
At that particular time when you were deposed, did you have an opinion as to whether or not all the gunshots that entered the decedent's left wrist had re-entered her body?
Objection is to form. Sustained. If you can re-ask the question, please.
The shots that went through the forearm of the decedent, did they travel into other parts of her body?
They did.
Do you remember having your deposition taken?
Yes.
Page 12, line 13. The shots that went through the forearm, did they then travel into other parts of the body? Answer, possibly. Do you recall giving that answer?
If it's documented, then I did.
And my question to you is, what work did you perform from the moment of your autopsy to the moment today that you're testifying that would turn a possibly into a definite answer that you're giving today to this jury on the stand?
After considering the findings at autopsy and the scene findings.
And I'd like to know, if you could play it out for us, exactly what did you do since January of 2015 to change that possibly to a definite?
I reviewed the autopsy and the scene findings.
So what you're saying is that before, when you were preparing for your deposition testimony, you did not review those?
I did.
So you reviewed for your deposition, you gave the answer as possibly, and now you're reviewing again and you're changing your answer to definite. Is that what you're telling the jury?
Based on the totality of evidence, I guess I changed my response from January of this year to now November.
Did you create a supplemental report that would have indicated exactly what steps you took and how your findings had changed when you did that?
No, the report stays the same because the autopsy findings and the scene findings stay the same. It is the interpretation that can change.
And the interpretation changed from your review of the same material prior to January 15th and then prior to your testimony today, correct?
Objection, Judge Jackson, answer. Overruled.
You can answer.
Yes.
Now I see that this demonstrative aid, is this the same demonstrative aid that you use for most of your cases?
No, I usually use a male.
Okay. Have you used this one before?
Probably.
And this is not the size. This is not 5'6", or do you know how tall this is?
No.
I see that it's positioned in a kneeling position. When was it that you came to determine that the positioning of the decedent during the shots was in a kneeling position? When did you determine that?
I did not. The demonstrative aid was put in this position.
Okay, so the fact that it was placed in this position kneeling was not based on your opinion or your direction. Is that?
I don't know.
Well, the prosecution placed this demonstrative aid here in the kneeling position. My question to you is that was not based on your instruction, correct?
It possibly may have been. I don't know.
Okay. It possibly may have been. My question to you is, today, or in preparation for your testimony,
yes,
did you instruct the prosecution to place this visual aid in the kneeling position? Yes or no?
Judge Aston answered. Overruled.
You can answer.
I did not tell the prosecution to place her in this position. We discussed the case.
Based on the entrance wounds, could you opine as to where she was standing or how the bullets entered her body?
Where she was standing? She was probably in the far right corner of the kitchen.
Again, I'm gonna turn your attention to your deposition in January of 2015, page 12, line 21. Question: based on the entrance wounds, could you opine as to where she was standing or how those bullets entered her body? Answer, for most of them, I can't really say from the wounds alone. You remember giving that answer?
That sounds,
To object to improper impeachment. Sustained.
Did you have an opinion in January of 2015 as to how she was standing?
no,
And do you have an opinion today?
not really.
So sitting here as the forensic pathologist in this particular case, you do not have a formal opinion as to how the decedent was standing at the time that she was struck. Is that correct?
She was probably in multiple positions as she was being fired upon with all these bullets.
But in your prior testimony, correct me if I'm wrong, when they posed the hypothetical to you, doctor, you gave the opinion that she was kneeling.
Did I say that? Or was I answering a question?
If my recollection is correct and the recollection of this jury, I'm pretty sure that on direct, when they posed the hypothetical, you testified that you believed that she was kneeling. Do you remember that?
I answered the hypothetical. I did not say that she was kneeling. I answered questions.
So just to be clear, you're not telling this jury that Jennifer Alonso was kneeling on that day, correct?
That is correct.
Now, the projectiles that were recovered, who was it that provided those projectiles to the police?
Dr. Johnson.
I can turn this on. Give me a minute. Yeah, do you mind if I take these little stickies out? You do mind?
Yes.
No, just as an exhibit that's been entered into evidence and misplaced.
No speaking objections. Would you like to come sidebar? Yes. Go sidebar. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Just give a moment. Mr. Padilla, when you're ready.
Yes.
Thank you.
Doctor, were you present with Dr. Johnson when she provided all these projectiles to the police, or was that done outside of your supervision?
I would have been in the morgue. The detective was in the morgue at the time that she provided the projectiles to the detective.
And is it your testimony that you yourself witnessed this? Do you have a recollection of witnessing this?
No, I do not.
Now, is it your testimony that projectile 19, do you recall projectile 19?
There is no projectile for 19 that we recovered.
Okay, so I'm sorry, number 19 would be which wound?
It is on the right upper back below her neck.
And is that the shot that you are testifying that was found at the scene?
It is consistent with the projectile found at the scene, yes.
And is it your testimony that the projectile that was recovered from wound L, is that in her back?
Wound L is in her back, but the projectile was not in her back.
And wound L was where you recovered that projectile, is that correct?
No. There was no projectile associated with wound L.
Right. And is it your testimony
body.
today? Is it your testimony today that that was caused by a gunshot ricocheting off of the Formica cabinet? Is that your testimony?
That's entirely consistent.
Just a second. Do you know if Miss Alfonso was right-handed or left-handed?
I don't know.
Do you think that's something that's important to know in a situation like this where self-defense is at issue?
Not really.
Not really. Do you know if my client is right-handed or left-handed?
No.
Do you think that that's something that's important when trying to determine, as a pathologist, the possible directions of gunshots?
No.
Would it be something that you would ask the detective?
I might, but
Are you saying that in the multitude of cases that you testified that you were involved in, that you never inquire as to whether the defendant is right-handed or left-handed?
I may inquire, but I don't always.
So how do you determine when you inquire and when you don't inquire?
When I feel like it, when I feel it's important.
And in this particular case, you did not feel it was important?
There are so many different ways you can hold a gun and so many different angles that you can fire a gun. It's not really important.
But it would help you in making a better determination. Would you agree with me?
No, it doesn't change the cause or manner of death.
But it does affect trajectory. Is that correct?
Oh,
No? You testified that you came here and you inserted a lot of these dowels to show trajectory. Is that correct?
to show pathways through the body, yes.
Okay. And all of these were determined by you by the findings of Dr. Johnson. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So every single one of these dowels that were inserted into this dummy was the byproduct of Dr. Johnson's work and not your independent work, correct?
I was there at the autopsy. I helped to examine the body. She did the physical work.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted as dates 188. Could you take a look? Can I approach you?
Of course.
Can you explain to me what that picture is? I know you already did once, but I'd like for you to explain to the jury again what that is.
This is a photograph of all of the projectiles and projectile fragments that were recovered from the body of Ms. Alfonso.
Okay. And there's little post-its on each projectile. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Could you read starting at the top from the left the date that's associated with each one of those post-its, and work your way down to the bottom? Could you do me that favor?
Yes. August 9, 2013, 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 August 10, 2013.
Okay, August 10, 2013, what particular projectile is that?
That was the one from the right upper back.
Okay, and is there a particular reason why that particular post-it says August 10th and not August 9th like the rest of the projectiles?
I don't know. This is Dr. Johnson who labeled the envelopes.
Isn't the reason that that particular post-it states August 10th is because it was only until the next day that Dr. Johnson realized that she had missed that particular projectile and had the body re-x-rayed and was able to find that particular projectile. Isn't that true?
Yes, that is possible.
Is it possible or is it true?
You'd have to ask her. I don't have an independent recollection.
I understand, but unfortunately, since we have you here and you were the supervisor that was supervising her, I'm left in a position where I have to ask you, and I understand it may be difficult, but I just like to ask you, is it true or is it possible?
Overruled.
You can answer, ma'am.
It is probably true, yes.
Okay. So what occurred here?
Yes.
I'll take that out. I'm going to show you what's been marked as 185 and 186, which is pictures of the x-rays, okay? This is 185. Could you take a look at that?
Yes.
Could you tell the jury what that is?
It is a photograph of the x-ray of the chest.
My first question is, isn't that x-ray missing something? Isn't it missing identifying information? In the medical examiner's office, I've seen reports, and everything is always itemized
Yes.
with the name of the decedent, the case. Why is it that that particular x-ray doesn't have that?
Because we are now using a new digital system, which will not include it in the photograph.
So is that a new system?
Yes.
Okay. So what you're saying is that now all the x-rays don't have any identifying information?
In our system, on our computer, it has identification. But
And
when
when-
you print
when was
out
it?
the photograph, you won't have the information.
So now what you're saying is that now all the pictures of the x-rays no longer have any identifying information?
That is correct. You have to compare it with those in our system, and if it's identical, then it is a true copy.
Now, in that particular x-ray, we see 4 projectiles, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we also see some, what is this that we're looking at? Is that organs?
Yes, that is a shadow of the heart in the center of the chest.
And I'm going to show you now what's been marked as 186, another x-ray of the chest. Now, in that particular x-ray, we don't see that shadowing, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And would that indicate that this x-ray was done after the autopsy?
No, it was done after the organs had been taken out of the body.
Are you saying that because you think it, or because you recall, you have personal recollection of when that x-ray was taken?
No, I don't have personal recollection of when the x-ray was taken. I know for certain this is after the organs have been taken out of the body.
I understand that, and that was basically my point. In this x-ray, the organs were still in the body. In this x-ray, the organs are now outside of the body, correct?
Yes, that is
And isn't
correct.
that indicative of Dr. Johnson attempting to find this missing projectile after she had dictated this autopsy and after she had made incorrect findings?
No, not at all. The reason that we still have the other projectiles is that we were looking for that last projectile when we, at the end of the day, we realized that on the x-ray, one was missing. That's why we had the extra x-ray taken to show which one was missing so that and where it was, so she could find it before the body was released.
Okay, so now you have an independent recollection as to when this x-ray was taken.
No, I don't.
Okay. But you do have an independent recollection of why it was taken?
Yes.
So you have an independent recollection of Dr. Johnson searching for a projectile that was missing, correct?
I am presuming because of this, the fact that another x-ray was taken, that we realized one of the projectiles was not yet recovered.
And that is a presumption, or is it a recollection?
It is a presumption which I am pretty sure is true. Otherwise, we would not have found this last projectile.
But I'm sorry that I have to basically corner you here, but it is a presumption. It's not, you don't have an independent recollection. You can't testify to this jury that you remember that.
Objection, Judge, asked and answered.
Sustained.
I'll move on.
Thank you.
Based on wounds and the scene, do you have an opinion as to how she was angled when she was struck?
I don't have an opinion as to how she was angled. I know where the gun was relative to the body.
Regarding how close to the ground?
The gun or the body or...
The decedent.
Objection to just a form.
You want to
I'm-
rephrase your question?
Sure, Judge.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you, how close do you believe that the decedent was to the ground when she was struck?
For at least some of those wounds, she was very close to the ground because of the blood spatter I saw on the stove above and to the left of her head, which I photographed.
And that was from your investigation at the scene, correct?
Yes.
Okay. On January, during your deposition, you were asked by my co-counsel, Mr. Zanganeh, page 12, line 21. Based on the entrance wounds, could you opine as to where she was standing or how those bullets entered her body? For most of them, I can't really say, From most of them, I can't really say from the wounds alone, line 1. What did you mean by that? I can't tell her position at the time she was...
Judge, improper impeachment.
May we go sidebar, please? Take it if you don't. Okay. Okay. I just thought you didn't have enough time. Van Esther, when you're ready, just let Mr. Padilla know, and Mr. Padilla, you may begin once Van Esther gives you the nod. Phones off, folks. May begin.
Based upon your investigation, your complete investigation, how close do you believe the decedent was to the ground?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
For at least some of the shots, Miss Alfonso was fairly close to the ground based on the pattern of blood spatter I saw at the scene on the stove right next to her body.
how close do you believe she was positioned to the ground?
Objection, judge asked and answered.
Overruled.
I would like a
Within,
height, I'm sorry, I would like a height to help the jury.
within 3 feet above the ground.
During your deposition, page 13, when they asked,
Objection, judge, proper impeachment.
Sustained.
so is it 3 feet or is it 4 feet, or are you not sure?
Objection, judge asked and answered.
Overruled.
I couldn't tell you. I just know from the pattern of blood spatter, it's coming from a point that's very close to the ground. That's the basis of my answer.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Based on the pattern of blood spatter, it is coming from a point that is fairly close to the ground, lower than 3 feet above the floor.
So lower than 3 feet.
That's what it looks like. I did not measure it. I eyeballed it at the time at the scene.
You did not measure it?
No, the crime scene would have measured it.
And when you say you didn't measure it, what are you referring to?
I'm referring to the blood spatter.
And when you made a determination on the scene that it would have come from 3 feet, did you use any measuring device yourself?
I was simply answering one of your questions. I gave out an answer of 3 feet. I don't know. I didn't take any measurements. It was low to the ground.
I'm going to bring your attention back to wound L.
Yes,
Wound L again is the one
on the
back?
right upper back, yes.
Is it your testimony that that was a gunshot?
Based on all the information and the evidence, I would say it is the result of a gunshot.
I'm going to turn to your deposition, page 14, line 10. That wasn't a gunshot. Is that what you're saying? Answer. It could have been related to a gunshot, but it was like a laceration, a tear through the skin and through some of the soft tissues. Now, there's a distinction in that and what you testified here today, correct?
Judge, I'm going to object again to improper impeachment.
Sustained.
What have you done since January of 2015 to alter your opinion as to it could have been a gunshot, or today for sure it's a gunshot?
Objection, judge. My objection was sustained as to improper impeachment. So I'm
Ask your next question, Mr.
Judge,
Padilla.
okay.
No,
what-
let's go sidebar.
So my question is, what have you done since January of 2015 in your investigation and your analysis to make the determination that it was definitely a gunshot wound?
Okay, let me tell you how I came to that conclusion. At the time of my deposition in January of 2015, I remember being asked that question. I remember my answer. But then Mr. Zanganeh actually gave me the answer. He asked whether it could be consistent with the Ricochet. And I thought, yes, very much so, because the fragment of the cupboard was found in her hair. And that would explain why the wound was very superficial, because the bullet struck the cabinet first, took off a chunk of the cover, I guess, and then bounced off the cupboard into the back. But it had lost a lot of energy by bouncing off that hard cabinet. So it made a superficial track and was able to fall out at some point. So given all of the physical evidence, and with Mr. Zanganeh's suggestion, I credit him with that suggestion, and I totally agree with that scenario.
So what you're saying is that Mr. Zanganeh knows more than a trained forensic pathologist. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know where he got that question from, but in this case, yes.
And what you're saying also is that until the time of January 15th, when you took your deposition, the first time that the notion that this could have been created by a ricocheted round came from Mr. Zanganeh? Is that what you're telling me, Mr.?
I really don't remember. I could have thought about that before, but it was
I'm sorry,
solidified.
I'm going to have to press you.
Let her finish the question, let her finish her response, and then you may ask your question, Dr. Liu.
If you're forcing me to remember, I can't.
Well,
If
what
I
I'm
don't
asking-
remember, I don't.
I understand. What I'm asking you is this, and it's pretty important. From the moment that this occurred and you started your investigation in this case, August 9th of 2013, is it your testimony to this jury that the first time that the notion that the wound from the back could have been produced by a ricochet came in January of 2015 from Mr. Zanganeh? Is that what you're telling this jury?
I can't rule that out.
You can't rule that out, but you just testified that that's what it was. So is it, I can't rule that out, or yes, for sure, it came from Mr. Zanganeh?
It came, well,
Overruled.
So which is it?
regardless of where I first got that possibility, the physical evidence is consistent with that, so I'm going with that. It's consistent with that.
And I understand that. But you just testified that it came from Mr. Zanganeh.
Yes, let me...
finish my question. I'm sorry. You just testified that it came from Mr. Zanganeh. And my concern is that in a case like this, a first-degree murder case where there's a detective...
Objection, Judge. Counsel's testifying.
Ask your question, sir.
My concern is where there's a detective investigating. I would like to know if, in that investigation, the notion of this round ricocheting off of this formica and entering her back came from Mr. Zanganeh. Yes or no?
For the purposes of your question, I will say yes.
Now, you have an opinion as to the projectile that created that wound, where it eventually ended up? Do you have an opinion to that?
It is consistent with the projectile being found under her body after we moved the body at the scene.
I'm sorry, under what?
Under her body.
Under her body? And would that be under her body, under a rug?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as... Has this been Okay. States 21. I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you a hypothetical, as you were asked on direct. The hypothetical is, you have one seasoned, trained forensic pathologist of more than 25 years. You have another trainee that's new at forensic pathologist and is training, and they are investigating a case. And in their investigation, the direction and the direction of a round, and whether a round came from a ricochet, comes almost a year and a half later from a defense attorney. Would you say that those two forensic pathologists were incompetent at that time?
I would just, objection as to the hypothetical.
Sustained. Ask your next question.
So I'm going to show you what's been marked as State Exhibit 21. Could you see that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna publish this to the jury with your permission. Now, could you show the jury? Could you come here and show the jury where that projectile was found in relation to this picture? The projectile that allegedly made that gunshot in the back.
I couldn't tell you, I was not there in the kitchen when that projectile was.
So, sitting here today, do you have any knowledge or a recollection of where the projectile was found?
Under the rug, close to the rug.
Okay, so around here, underneath the rug?
You would have to ask the crime scene, I believe.
Have a seat. So it's your testimony that that round that ricocheted and that entered the back, and she was wearing a shirt, right? So penetrated her shirt, entered her back, and then fell out, and then was found underneath the body, underneath the rug. Is that your testimony?
I am saying it would be consistent with that. You are asking the question, I'm answering your question.
Was the projectile that was found underneath the rug, was it identified by you? Does it have an identifier?
No, I didn't see it.
You've never seen it?
I don't remember seeing it.
Did you analyze it?
No, we don't analyze bullets.
So you have no way of knowing if that particular round had any blood, any DNA, anything of that nature?
No, that's not our job.
Okay. But is it your job to inquire? To send out feelers to find out where's this projectile? Did anybody find blood or DNA on it? To actually assist a jury in understanding how this happened?
Sustained. Ask your question, please.
You actually removed the clothing in this case, correct?
We did.
And you recall removing the shirt?
I don't independently recall it. I know we removed the clothing at the scene.
Do you recall seeing a gunshot wound on the back of the shirt?
We saw a hole just below the collar on the back of the shirt.
Could you point to the jury where that hole was on your body?
Close to the middle, just underneath the collar on the back.
And what is your opinion? Is your opinion that that was caused by a gunshot?
It would be consistent with a projectile.
When you were investigating this case and on the scene, when you were there, did you have any communication with Detective Grossman?
He was likely at the scene.
Do you have a recollection of you speaking with him?
No.
You have no recollection? Do you recall if you ever used the term to Detective Grossman of cowering? Did you ever use that term, cowering?
I don't remember using it.
Wound A is shot 1, correct?
Yes.
And all the analysis regarding the trajectory of that particular shot and wound was done by Dr. Johnson, correct?
Yes.
Wound B is shot number 4, correct?
Yes.
And all the analysis regarding the actual wound and the trajectory was done by Dr. Johnson, correct?
I pulled out the projectile from her body.
You pulled out the projectile?
Yes.
Did you insert a dowel for the analysis of the trajectory?
No, it was very superficial. It struck the lower jawbone and fractured it.
Okay, so which one would that be on this dummy? You can stand up and show me which one would that be on this dummy? We're talking about B, right?
You were asking me about B, so I'll
Okay.
show you B.
Okay.
Just the one in front, on the left side of her lower jaw.
Okay, and you just testified that you did not use a dowel to find the trajectory of that round, correct?
I just put in my finger, and there it was under the skin.
Okay, so then you're saying this one, right? So then this is
Yes.
not the trajectory. It could be heat, it could be this way, it could be, the way that you angled it, sorry. the way that you angled it, if not using a dowel to figure out the trajectory, would you say that this is just your guessing?
No, it's not. I felt it with my finger. I knew which way the path was going. And this is just a tool to help us see the direction of the path. We determine pathways all the time through bodies. We don't necessarily put it down through all the pathways, but we know the direction of the path.
And that was done with your finger?
Yes.
Okay. So let's remove all the ones that are re-entries, okay? So would you agree that number 2 is a re-entry?
It probably is, yes.
Okay. Could you remove it? Okay. And number 3, is number 3 a re-entry?
Judge, I have an objection as to the numbers that are being used. Are these numbers based on the photographs, or are these the number of dowels?
No talking
I'm just-
objections. Okay, so why don't you use the letters and numbers that Dr. Liu used, please?
This particular dowel here, this is for which shot?
This is for gunshot wound C,
And would that be a re-entry?
probably.
Is it probably or is it yes?
I'll say yes.
Okay. And why would you say probably and then yes?
It could be a separate shot, but the characteristics of this wound would be consistent with a re-entry wound, where the bullet went through another part of the body before entering the jaw.
Okay. So you're here today to testify in this case. So would you agree with me that round was a re-entry?
I would agree with you.
Okay. So you could remove it. This would be what shot?
Gunshot wound A,
And is it your testimony that that is also a re-entry?
no.
Okay. And this shot?
That is gunshot wound D,
And is it your testimony that that is a re-entry?
yes.
Okay, could you remove it? And this particular shot?
This is gunshot wound E, which
Okay.
is not a re-entry.
It is not a re-entry.
It is not a re-entry.
Okay. These two?
They are probably re-entries.
They are probably re-entries?
Yes.
Okay. And sitting here today on the stand in this first-degree murder case, do you have an opinion as to are they for sure re-entries, or are you still going to stick with probably?
Objection, judges to form.
Sustained. Rephrase your question, please.
You just testified that these two are probably re-entries. And I'd like to ask you, are you unable to make a definitive determination as to whether these two are re-entries?
I will say they are re-entries.
Okay, so you're changing your prior testimony from probably to for sure.
Based upon your insistence.
No, but
Persistence.
and I'm sorry, but I have to be persistent.
And then I will answer.
Overruled.
Okay, so the reason that you're changing your testimony to this jury regarding these probably being re-entries, and you're changing it to for sure they're re-entries, is based on my persistence, not your investigation and analysis.
Actually, I will say they are re-entries based on the physical evidence we have on the body.
Okay. And you're not saying that because of my persistence, you're saying that because of your analysis and your investigation in this case, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So could you remove them? Any other of these shots re-entries that are left?
Gunshot wound F,
Okay. So gunshot wound F is a re-entry.
yes.
Okay. Now, for all the shots that were re-entries, that means that in your opinion, they traveled through the wrists?
Yes.
Okay. Because that's the only way that in a situation like this, that those wounds would have re-entered, right? Because they went through the wrist.
Yes.
Okay, so all the trajectory and all the way that these dowels were aiming would certainly change if all those rounds had to travel through this wrist. Could you agree with that?
You mean, in other words, you're saying that by traveling through the wrist, it changes the pathways?
No, my point was, when a jury looks at this particular dummy and it has all these different trajectories and angles for all these different shots, all the ones that we pulled out, all of these re-entries,
Yes.
are shots that traveled through her wrist. So it's not accurate for them to think that the angles were coming from all these different sides when they had to travel through the wrist. Would you agree with me?
Objection as to form.
guess I'm
Just
slightly...
overruled.
I'm sorry.
You may answer, Dr.
You
Wu.
can answer.
I'm slightly confused.
Okay,
by your
I'm gonna try and
question.
ask it again. These dowels that were removed
Yes,
because there are re-entries,
yes,
they were in different angles and trajectories going into this dummy.
yes,
Okay. If all of these were re-entries, and the only way for them to be re-entries was
Yes.
because they traveled through the left wrist,
yes.
then you would agree with me that the angles would all have to be different because they had to have traveled through the wrist.
And they likely were different. I am just basing it on the fact that the entrances are on the back, the exits are on the front, so they're going from back to front. But who's to say that this is an angle slightly this way, one's going this way, one's going this way?
Okay.
As long as they come out through the exits on the inside of the wrist.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the jury understood that you were not testifying that was the actual trajectory.
But these are the pathways through the body.
I understand that they're the pathways, but considering that they had to have traveled through her left wrist, you would agree with me that they wouldn't be able to be exactly the way you pulled them out.
But those were the pathways,
Overruled.
the direction of the travel of the bullets through the body.
Okay, so, but they would have had to have traveled through her left wrist, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you can have a seat. The only projectile that you yourself removed from the decedent was which one?
The one associated with gunshot wound B on the left side of the jaw.
All the other ones were removed by Dr. Johnson, correct?
Yes, I felt the one associated with the D at the scene.
Was the fact that for B, number 4, the fact that you felt the trajectory with your finger, was that memorialized in a report?
No, only the pathway, the direction of travel of the bullet. I did not say in the report that I stuck my finger in along the path of travel of the bullet.
Okay. And is your testimony today that for a forensic pathologist to use their finger to find the direction of a bullet is normal?
Yes,
Okay. And for C, number 5, Dr. Johnson did all the work regarding the dowel and finding the trajectory?
I'm sorry, for C number 5?
C, number 5.
Oh, C. Yes,
Now you testified that D, number 2.
yes.
What was your involvement in regarding that particular wound?
I felt the projectile under the skin at the scene, so I knew where the bullet was at the scene.
Okay. But anything further having to do with that projectile, including retrieving it, the trajectory of that particular shot was done by Dr. Johnson, correct?
Yes.
And E, number 3, all the work regarding E, shot 3, was done by Dr. Johnson?
Yes,
Okay. And it's your testimony that that's not a reentry?
that is correct.
Now, in your investigation of this particular case, would you agree with me that it's rare to be involved in a case where there is footage of not the actual incident, but around the same time as the incident, and that has some images of the incident are preserved in video? Would you agree with me that that's rare to find?
Objection, Judge, beyond scope.
Sustained.
When you were at the scene, did you see the security cameras that were there?
Yes,
And did any of the detectives in this case provide you with a copy of the footage for you to review and help you in your analysis of how this had occurred?
I saw a video, yes.
Okay, and when was it that you saw this video?
I can't remember.
Is that something that would be memorialized in one of your reports?
No,
And why not?
we don't document every step we take. We go to the left, to the right, but it was shown to me.
But you would agree with me that for someone in your position, and in a case like this, to be shown a video and to have that as part of your analysis would be something that should be memorialized in a report. Would you agree with me?
We don't always do that, no. We document when we meet with detectives for an official conference, but we don't document exactly what was discussed.
Now, Dr. Johnson, the doctor that investigated and performed all the dowels to find the trajectory and all these bullets except the one that you used your finger for. At the time of her conducting this autopsy, do you know how long she had been doing autopsies in your office?
She started with us on July 1st, and the autopsy was done on August 9th.
So a month. The person that conducted the majority of the investigation and analysis regarding the trajectory of all of these wounds except one was only performing these autopsies for a month for your office. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, at any point in your investigation, were you provided with a Facebook post that memorialized the scene moments after the shooting? Were you ever provided that?
I remember showing up to the scene, and one of the detectives, I believe, showed me that image.
Okay, so do you remember who that was?
No.
Okay. And did they show you on a phone, or did they show you a printout? How did they show it to you?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did you, as part of your analysis and investigation, take that image and actually compare it to the crime scene or compare it to a crime scene picture to help you in your analysis of whether or not the decedent had moved at all?
No, I just went in and documented the scene as I found it.
But you would agree with me that it's a rare instance for there to be a picture memorializing the decedent moments after the shooting, and that would have been a helpful tool for you to analyze whether or not the decedent had moved or something that you could have used in your investigation. Would you agree with me?
Well, pictures are getting more and more common all the time, but not posted on Facebook.
Okay. I'm going to turn your attention back to the Ricochet, the magic round that was found underneath the rug. That particular, you testified that you found the formica in the decedent's hair, correct?
Yes.
And even after finding that formica in the decedent's hair, it was only after a year and a half and Mr. Zanganeh's suggestion at a deposition that you thought that maybe this round ricocheted off of the formica and entered her back. Is that correct?
Objection, Judge, asked and answered.
Overruled.
You can answer.
If you recall, I told you I don't know whether I thought about that before my deposition. You just, cornered me into an answer. And I told you, I don't remember.
You don't remember what, ma'am?
I don't remember if I had thought about a ricochet before the deposition taken by Mr. Zanganeh. I took a photograph at the scene to show the strike mark on that cabinet at the scene.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as, regarding that alleged ricochet round, I'm going to show you what's been marked as, what number is it? Okay, I'm going to show you what's been marked as 204.
Have you shown it to this?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a picture of the dowel used to attempt to find the trajectory of the alleged ricochet round, correct?
Yes.
And that particular dowel placement and the trajectory was done by Dr. Johnson, correct?
Yes, I would have, because we were curious about this wound, I would have reinserted it myself.
But you didn't reinsert it yourself, correct?
I probably did reinsert it myself. I would have tested the pathway.
And why would you have tested the pathway?
Because she was only doing autopsies for a month with us, and I was supervising her, and this was an unusual wound.
And what was unusual about it?
It stopped.
Okay. And so what you're saying is that you're testifying today that you probably would have taken this matter into your own hands and readjusted that particular valve, but you don't have a clear recollection of doing that?
I did not readjust that dowel. I reinserted it to make sure it was going in the direction that Dr. Johnson found it going in.
And are you testifying that you probably did that, or that you remember that you took that dowel and that you readjusted?
I will say that I probably did that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat your last name?
I will say that I probably did that.
And I know that that's a term that you've been using quite often during my cross-examination, and I'm going to ask you, when you say probably, it's because you don't remember for sure doing it, correct?
But under the circumstances, it is something I would have done.
I understand, but unfortunately, we're in a situation where we're at trial.
Objection, Judge. Counsel's testifying. Does he have a question?
No speaking objections, please.
I was gonna
Ask
say-
your question, please.
Unfortunately, I have to corner you. Do you remember for sure taking that dowel and investigating that bullet trajectory, yes or no?
All I can say is in this situation, I probably would have.
And I have to ask you again, do you have an independent recollection of taking that dowel and putting it in that wound and investigating that particular wound yourself, yes or no?
I would say yes.
Overruled.
So yes.
Yes.
So again, we're in a situation where you've evolved from probably to yes. And my question to you is it because of my persistence or because you automatically remember?
I know how obsessive compulsive I am, especially supervising a complex case with multiple gunshot wounds in a fellow that is relatively new.
Okay?
That's what I would have done.
Okay. And I understand that that's what you would have done, but I'm going to ask you now. Is it because of your recognizing that you're an obsessive compulsive person that you would have done it, or do you remember for sure doing it? We need to be clear.
Yes, the first.
The first.
Yes.
That you assume you
Yes.
did it because you're obsessive compulsive, but you really can't remember.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you testified regarding gunpowder stippling, correct?
Yes.
Didn't this occur in a very tight quarters?
Yes.
Do you recall the dimensions of the kitchen that this occurred in? Do you recall that?
I recall Ms. Klein saying 5.5 by 3.5 feet.
Ms. Klein saying when?
Earlier during my direct.
Okay. But in your investigation, were the dimensions of the kitchen something that was part of your analysis?
No, that would be by crime scene. We don't measure the scene.
Okay. But in a close quarters situation like this, we could assume that if a gunshot is fired, that stippling is going to be produced, correct?
No, you can't assume that.
Let me ask you this question. The decedent's body, the way it was positioned, did it have one leg in front of the other?
No.
She did not have one leg in front of the other?
No, they were both bent behind her.
I understand that they were bent behind her, but my question to you was, were both of her feet forward, or were they like this?
Objection to this to like this.
I'll show her a picture.
Sustained.
Show you a picture. I'm going to show you state 71.
Yes.
Okay. My question to you is, in the particular position that she is in, is her left foot in front of her right foot?
It is closer to the door than her right foot.
But they're not parallel, correct?
They are, look at them. They're both pointing back towards the body.
They're pointing back towards...
They're
towards her.
parallel to each other.
to each other, but
Yes.
not to the kitchen. So she was angry, is what I'm saying.
Yes, then you should have specified that.
Okay, that was just my question. She was angry, correct?
Yes,
She had one leg in front of the other, correct?
closer to the door than the other.
Okay. Okay, I'll take that back. Now, you cannot give any opinion as to what the decedent was doing with her right hand, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you testified during your direct that you believe that some of the wounds on the left wrist are defensive in nature?
No, I said they were consistent with defensive injuries.
They were consistent with defensive injuries?
Yes.
And that's not you saying that they are defensive injuries?
That is correct.
Okay. And that would be because you really don't know whether they were defensive injuries or not, correct?
That is correct.
No further questions. Thank you, doctor.
Redirect? Thanks. Bless you. Dr. Liu, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Liu, you worked with Dr. Johnson for a year, is that right?
Yes,
Now, when I say doctor, that's because she was a medical doctor by the time she got to you, is that correct?
she was already a pathologist.
Okay. What does that mean? What did she have to do to be a pathologist at that point?
She has her medical degree and went through 4 years of training in pathology, which is a specialty in medicine.
Is that what most people know as like a residency that
Yes.
we hear about? Okay. So this was a subspecialty in forensic pathology after already being a pathologist, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. And Dr. Liu, how many times since you've been at the medical examiner's office since 1991 one, have you supervised a fellow?
For thousands of cases.
Okay. How many times, how many autopsies have you done while supervising a fellow?
Around 5,000 in Miami-Dade County.
Objection, Judge, beyond the scope.
Overruled.
And how many times during the course of those 5,000 autopsies while supervising a fellow would you have been working with the fellow on the placement of a dowel to determine the path of the bullet?
A number of times.
Number meaning like more than 5 in 5,000?
Overruled.
Definitely.
Okay. So when you answered defense counsel, well, let me ask you, you recall being asked repeatedly about your answer as to probably. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Were you basing your answer probably on the 5,000 times that you supervised a fellow and the 5,000 autopsies you did?
Overruled.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Dr. Liu, you reviewed your deposition in preparation for your trial testimony today, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you recall being asked by defense counsel about how on page 12 of your deposition, you said you were asked, the shots went through the forearm, did they then travel into other parts of the body? And you answered possibly. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Liu, just so we're both looking at the same thing, I'm going to give you a clean copy of your deposition. And I just read from beginning on line 13 to direct your attention.
Yes.
Could you please tell us what the next question and answer were in your deposition?
Objection, Judge.
Sustained.
Okay. Were you then asked where the other entrance wounds were?
Same objection.
I'm sorry, Dr. Liu, please don't read from the report. If you need to refresh your recollection, you may.
Okay. You can
And
close
then
the
you
depot now.
Look up.
And it's hearsay, Judge.
Overruled.
Were you then asked where the other entrance wounds were?
And I have to refer to a copy of my deposition.
Please.
And yes, I was asked that.
Okay. And in fact, what was your answer?
I said on her lower face, lower neck, and upper chest.
And is that
Sustained.
Okay.
She cannot read from that document. Ask another question, please.
Is the answer that you gave in the deposition at that time, Dr. Liu, consistent with exactly what you said today?
Yes.
Let's talk about the x-ray a little bit, Dr. Liu. Okay?
Yes.
Recall being asked on cross-examination all these questions about how there was a second x-ray and another bullet, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The autopsy report wasn't finalized on August 10th, was it?
No.
Okay. Was it even actually formally written on August 10th?
No.
Objection, Lady.
So one day after
Overruled.
the
Overruled. Ask open-ended questions, please.
One day after the autopsy, what was actually going on in the process?
Based on what has been presented already, the final bullet was located and recovered from the body.
Why do you have to do that? Why don't you just leave it there?
That is evidence. We recover all bullets.
So was that an effort to be thorough?
Yes.
Overruled.
And is that why the second x-ray was taken?
Yes.
Okay. Tell the jurors why.
Because Dr. Johnson had difficulty locating that last projectile, we had to make sure it was, number one, still in the body, and number two, where it was.
And that's so the report can be complete?
I'm sorry.
Is that so the report can be complete?
Yes.
You recall being asked if you were ever shown the photo that was posted on Facebook. Is that right?
Yes.
And I believe you said you may have been shown that image.
Yes.
Right? And whether you made a comparison or analysis of the position of the victim. Is that correct?
Yes.
You know what, Dr. Liu? Let's do that now. Please step down. Dr. Liu, I'm showing you what's in evidence as State Exhibit 71. Okay? Now, you testified earlier that this fairly inaccurately depicts how the victim appeared when found. Is that still true?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, I'm showing you what's in evidence. State's Exhibit 176. Dr. Liu, as to the position of the victim's head, would you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and if you need us to move both pictures, as to the position of the victim's head and chest, what observations can you make in terms of any differences?
Lower exhibit was a photograph that was taken lower down relative to the person taking the photograph. But the position of the head, down on the chest, and slightly to the right is the same.
And I'm going to ask you to look at this again. Could you please look at the rest of her body? That's looking at the record, Exhibit 71, the one that you said is how you found her. Now let's look at 176. Please tell us what, if any, differences you notice in the observation on her body.
I don't notice any significant differences there.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. In number 71, there appear to be 4 white round circles on those. What are those?
Those are EKG patches or electrocardiographic patches based on paradigm fire rescue.
Now, we don't see those in 176, correct?
Correct.
Correct. And her right arm in number 71, could you tell us where that is? How is that positioned?
It is at the bottom of the cabinet.
Okay. And could you please tell us how her right arm is positioned in number 176?
It looks like it's right along the bottom of the cabinet.
And let's talk about how her legs are bent backwards with her feet upwards in number 71. Okay? Could you please tell us if her legs are positioned any differently in number 176?
They are the same. The left toe is closer to the left wrist than the right toe is to the right wrist.
Okay. Let's talk about the left wrist. In number 71, what observations can you make about the left wrist?
Exit moves on the inside of her left wrist.
Okay? And what, if anything, do you see further up on her arm?
The
Okay. What observations can we make about her left wrist in number 1?
not the exit moves on the inside of the left wrist.
And based on your training and experience, and based on the pictures and the evidence and where the cardiogram pad is in number 71, is this consistent with her arm having been turned out to apply the electrocardiogram
Objection,
to
Judge.
determine
Call for
if there is
speculation.
life?
Only if you know, Dr. Liu. If you do not know, do not guess or assume.
That is entirely consistent.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee, you recall being asked on cross-examination about a video
Yes.
that you watched.
Yes.
Did the video show the actual shooting?
No.
Now, Dr. Lee, you recall being asked on cross-examination about, as it relates to wound L, a hole in the shirt,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
It's in evidence, it's 119. I'm showing you what's in evidence as State's Exhibit 119. That's a picture of the hole, is that a picture of the hole in the shirt that you examined at the scene?
Yes.
Is that shirt inside out?
Yes.
Okay. Let's show it to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Is the hole in the shirt consistent with the injury, the location of the injury of wound L?
Wound L is on the upper back, just below the right side of the neck. We are looking at the shirt. So the tag is in the middle, and the hole is right to the right of the tag.
Now, Dr. Lee, you recall being asked on cross-examination about the dummy and the paths of the bullet, et cetera, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to please step back down. Dr. Lee, you testified on direct examination that these, the path of the wounds, G, H, I, J, and K, in the numbers on the photos 11 through 18, that those were front to back in the anatomical position, correct?
Back to front in the
Thank you.
anatomical.
Because this is the back of the hand.
Yes.
Okay. Now, for purposes of the hypothetical that we discussed, questions that you were asked on cross-examination about the arm being in a defensive position. Okay? You indicated that that could possibly be, well, why don't you put it how you think it could possibly have been, or what the injuries are consistent with, based on the hypothetical, where the arm would be.
The arm would be positioned against distal off the base. However, or on the upper chest.
Dr. Liu, can you please raise your voice slightly? Thank you.
The wounds on the chest are on the upper chest. The wounds, of course, are on the left forearm, close to the wrist. The arm would have to be positioned so that any bullet coming out the inside of the left forearm would be close to the wounds on the upper chest.
How? Show us, understanding that the dummy is a little bit stiffer. And just for the record, Dr. Liu, this visually is not in the same position that you found the victim, correct?
Correct.
Showing you 71 in evidence, Dr. Liu, while you're positioning her. We're not saying that the dummy is exactly in the position of 71, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, there were, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Liu, 5 shots to the wrist, correct?
Correct.
And that resulted in the re-entries both on the chest and on the chin, is that right?
Yes.
So could you please, for purposes of explanation, since you were asked about it on cross-examination, show the members of the jury how she could have had 5 shots here and then have them go through to her chin as well as to her chest?
Well, it might be easier on me.
Okay.
Wounds are here. On the chest are up here. And in order for the projectile to go through to her arm and into the left side of her jaw, her head was down.
Okay? So, can you return yourself to that position, please? Okay. So using you, Dr. Liu, if 5 projectiles went through your wrist,
Yes.
here, approximately where they went through in any case number 201302075, okay? Explain, please, on yourself, how the victim could have sustained the re-entries at 4 and 5 with windows B and C, as well as what was identified as 9 and 10 and 2 and 15.
The breast, you saw her positioning at the scene. By that time, she may have been on the floor, uncloaking the ground and pushing up her breast. Saw where her chin was, resting right on her chest, right above her breast. So, with her head down, those projectiles coming through the wrist can then enter the left lower jaw, and go into the breast, which is now pushed up, and then coming through the right breast, left breast into the right upper chest and right mid chest.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Lee, recall being asked on cross-examination about your opinion as to how far Ms. Alfonso was from the ground.
Yes.
Recall being asked that on cross-examination?
Yes.
Okay, and I believe your testimony was that she was within 3 feet.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Close to the ground, I believe, were your
Yes.
words, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
That is correct.
Okay. And you said that you based that not just on the wounds, but on the blood spatter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to step down. Showing you what's in evidence at 135. Also going to have here, Dr. Liu, number 71. For purposes of your explanation, so you can refer back and forth to either if that's helpful. Please tell us what you meant when you said that based on where the blood was, that was evidence to you that the victim was lower to the ground.
The blood spatter that I saw was in this area. And the pattern of the blood spatter indicated it was coming from this area here. I know that some of those wounds is low on the ground.
Now, Dr. Lee, you recall being asked on cross-examination about her possibly standing
Yes.
at some point.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Liu, please join me. Dr. Lee, showing you and the members of the jury what evidence as 68. Okay? If Ms. Alfonso sustained the injuries that you discussed today and had been standing, for example, where number 7 is, would you expect to find blood on the carpet where number 7 is located?
Section calls for speculation, Judge.
Overruled.
Please explain to the members of the jury why.
Yes, she sustained multiple gunshot wounds. They would have bled.
And if Miss Alfonso had been standing close to where number 4 is in the picture on the carpet, would you expect to find blood?
Yes.
Okay. Explain why.
For the same reason as for the other physician, she was shot multiple times, all of them bled.
And Dr. Liu, if Miss Alfonso would have been shot and standing, again, near number 7, in addition to finding blood on the carpet, would you expect to find blood on any of the surrounding surfaces?
If she was standing up when she was shot, it is possible to find blood and tissue spatter on some of the higher surfaces.
If she was moving while she was being shot, would you anticipate finding blood on some of those surfaces?
Yes, depending on where she moved.
Okay. And if she was standing where number 4 was, in addition to finding blood on the carpet, would you anticipate, again, if she was moving, to find blood on some of the surfaces?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's look further out in the kitchen. If she was standing at the tip of where the firearm is, okay, would you expect to find blood there? Why?
For the same reasons as before, she was shot multiple times, and all of her wounds would have bled.
And if she would have been standing further towards the door of the kitchen, for example, the corner that I'm pointing to, would you have expected to find blood there?
Yes, for the same reasons.
Okay, and if she was standing over in this corner, the front part of the rug, would you have expected to find blood there?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, may I have a moment?
Yes.
Dr. Liu, regarding your testimony regarding the issue of Jennifer kneeling,
Yes.
based on all the evidence in this case that you have reviewed and your training and experience, including how Jennifer was photoed prior, as was shown in 176, and then later in exhibit with the leads on her, is all of that consistent to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that Jennifer was kneeling before she hit the ground and ended up like this?
It is consistent.
Judge, I have no further questions. Thank you, Dr. Liu.
Dr. Liu, you are excused.
Thank you, Honor.
State.
Not in a state rest.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, the state of Florida has rested its case. There are some issues I need to take up with the state and the defense outside of your presence. Please remember, it is more important than ever not to come to any formed opinions. You have not heard everything yet. This break may be a little bit more lengthy than our other ones. I will ask that you be, if it is 3:15 at this time, that you be back at your meeting place with Jose at 3:35. Understand that we may be a little bit longer than that, but as soon as we are done with our matters, I'd like to quickly get you back into the courtroom to continue. Please remember my instructions as always.
Please rise.
Yes, and leave your pads behind. Thank you. KB, please be seated. Let us take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and take motions.